If you're opening up Ableton 12 for the first time, these are the settings and preferences that we recommend for you guys so that you have a very easy experience and a consistent flow for your technique. Let's go. So the first setting that we recommend to change is going to be the zoom value. And what that means is essentially the way that you're looking at your DAW. So Ableton can already be a little intimidating as it already is. So the first thing you want to hit is go to settings, and in the display and input, you're going to see the zoom value about 100. If you click on this and hold it down, you can adjust the way that you look Ableton. So whatever way is easier for your eyes so that they don't strain or make it easier for you and your experience, adjust it. I usually have this as at about 100, just default as it is, but I know a lot of people tend to have this a little bit expanded, or even for most have this zoomed in as well. So the next setting that we recommend, if you look underneath here, you're going to see the move clips with arrow keys button on. You're going to hit that guy off. And what this means, guys, is if you have a MIDI, or I'm sorry, an audio clip that's a split, and if you just hit the arrow keys, if it's turned off, it's not going anywhere. But if you have this guy turned on and you hold this down, it'll move it kind of all over the canvas. And again, it's preference for you guys. I tend to have it off. I'm not an arrow key kind of guy, and I don't want anything that's going to mess up anything that I have going on. So I tend to turn that off. The next setting that we recommend, if you go down to the file and folder here, you're going to see the cache setting signs. And so what's going to happen here is that Ableton is a really cool setting where it can limit the amount of cache that it's using for your designated destination path or external drive, whatever you're using. You can always clean up everything that you have here to make sure that your computer's not being completely overused on your cache, and so that's really good to clean that up every once in a while. So as you see, I haven't done that in a bit, so it took a little bit to clean up here. I don't have a maximum cache here, but of course, if you're someone who's weary of space, you can turn that on, and it's very good to have that to make sure that your storage space is utilized the right way. The next preference I would change here, if you go to the library section here, if you see the show push and show cloud buttons turned on, you can turn those off, and you can see on the left hand side that it saves a little bit of real estate on your bar here. You can of course turn those on, and so if you exit the preferences here, you're going to also see in the bottom left hand here, for most Ableton users, this is going to be familiar to you guys. You could add any folder that you have from any destination folder, an external, internal, on your laptop, any customized folder that you have, a sample pack folder, plugins that you want to just put on the side here. That's what's really great about Ableton. You could just create those shortcuts here for you. So I tend to put some racks that I've created or accumulated, sample packs that I love going to specifically, and then I have sort of every single thing there. So it's really good to kind of utilize your library, and then one's favorite sounds that you have, Cashmere packs, whatever you want to push those to the side. It's a really good idea to use that. Okay, so the next setting, we're going to go back to the settings preference, hit the plugins tab, and on the right hand side here, you're going to see multiple plugins window. Make sure that button is turned on. What that means is that every channel input that you put, an audio, a MIDI, the previous channel that you had, all those plugins that you were using will just consolidate and hide, and so that it doesn't overwhelm you with all these thousands of windows and just confusing you with everything. So again, make sure that it's turned on. Okay, so next we're going to hop into the record, warp, and launch, and we're going to make sure that our bit depth is going to be to 32. What this means is that it's the highest sample rate possible, and so that anytime that you also consolidate and freeze channels, it's using that same recording algorithm in there as well, and so that you're always using 32-bit and it's using the highest qualities possible. So the next setting right under this in the count in, I would change that to 1 bar. Of course, you can change that to 2 or 4 bars. That's just going to be the count in on how many bars it will come in for you to restart recording. All right, so the next setting is really important, so make sure you guys pay attention. The loop and warp short samples, make sure that auto is stayed on auto and do not change that. Underneath it on the auto warp long samples, we're going to turn that off. Now for Ableton users, you guys know that the Ableton warp settings is a very, very tricky algorithm. Sometimes it can be super spot on and sometimes it can't be. For Ableton 12, they've now kind of initiated the auto warp long samples. I don't know about you guys, but the only time I'm really using long samples is when I'm doing like mixes or DJ mixes or anything like that, and I don't really have warp on for that matter. I tend to use that more for short samples, and Ableton tends to get those correct as well. Again, it's not a perfect program, so for the auto warp long samples, I would just turn that off. Okay, so underneath it, the default warp mode, we're going to change that from beats to complex. Now, recently there's been sort of a controversy with Kashmir openly speaking out that beats mode is essentially the best, warp mode to have that on. But it's, it can kind of be still up in the air. There's a lot of people that kind of push back for that. They say that the complex and mode just sounds a little bit more polished because beats mode just kind of concentrates a little bit more on like transients. So in the context of the mix, that's what I would probably suggest most. When you're kind of up there in the mix down preferences or mix down stages. But for your defaults, I would turn that to complex. Underneath this setting as well, the create fades on clip edges, please make sure that is turned off. That's going to really mess up a lot of your transient samples like snares, kicks, hi-hats. So just please make sure that is turned off. Okay, so the next setting is actually a really cool setting. We're going to jump into the view options up here, go all the way down to arrangement track controls, into the track options, and we're going to make sure that this keep latency button is turned off. I doubt you guys would want any latency when you're recording, so now Ableton is a way to work around that. So it is turned on by default. We're going to make sure that it's turned off, and then we'll right click, and then this will be the save as default MIDI clip. Make sure you can do that to yes, and you can do the same thing with your audio clips. And now you can turn that on to yes. I'm sorry, you can change it to your default setting. So now that any audio or MIDI clip that you load now is going to be on the same latency, and all it's going to be synced in time. And so once you get the audio and MIDI channel defaulted with those keep latency settings off, now everything will be perfectly in time. And since we're talking about default tracks, this is a really great opportunity to customize your MIDI and audio channels to what you would have by default every time that you load on those channels. So for me, I typically use utility, EQ8, and kickstart sidechaining on most of my channels, not everything. So that's why I have it by turned off. But anytime I load up anything by default, audio or MIDI, oh, look at that, MIDI's not saved. So this is a great chance to show you. Command C, I'm gonna go to MIDI down here, right click on MIDI, and this is going to now be save as default MIDI. Yes, and then now when I do insert MIDI clip, this will now be there by default. So it's a really cool, dope feature. Now, for those who have a really quick workflow and tend to work in templates, this is a really cool opportunity to also customize your templates by default as well too. So typically, if you have a main on your master channel and you want to just put a limiter, and then just throw also maybe a spectrum. So as soon as you're done throwing these guys on your master bus, you go up to File, and then you just go scroll down to the Save Live, Save as Template. And so now every time that you load up any project file by Empty Canvas, it'll load up those default settings on your master bus channel, and of course, carry on the same settings that you have from your MIDI and your audio. So it's really great to integrate those settings just from the get, so you don't have to really worry about that and cut so much time in your workflow. So as you guys probably noticed, on the left-hand side here, you see these collections that I've accumulated with very specific things that, again, just kind of contribute to my workflow. So I've been producing for almost 10 years now. As you guys know, over the year, you accumulate tons of plugins, sample packs, and all that. So it just can get extremely overwhelming, and especially when you're producing many genres and different types of plugins, just can get all over the place, just super confusing. And if you have your go-to plugins that you tend to always relate to, this is a great opportunity to collect those. And so for me, my first one is going to be obviously favorite synths and plugins. Probably want to change that. Right click, I tend to capitalize that. Boom, there we go. And so these are just ones that I tend to find myself using over and over again. And then this is where the OCD kind of kicks in a little bit. My saturation plugins, my reverb plugins, and everything all that comes in. And so a cool way to categorize this, rather than just going in your plugins, one by one in here, you can just hit 1 and 2, and it'll categorize them automatically for you. So that's really cool to integrate that into your collections. Now, of course, I did all these collections in Ableton 11. This was before this amazing feature that Ableton now has, which is to filter everything that you have in your collections with your plugins and sample packs. So it's really cool to kind of go through all that. And I believe to add your category to the device filter that you have. So for example, if I want to do Valhalla room, this one, edit, nope, that's not going to be it. Oh, edit up here. And so Valhalla Room is a reverb. And so that's going to go under, see they have a creator one here. And so this is going to be type, nope, sounds. Nope, so that's where you can categorize your sounds as well too. So I'm going to kind of go on a limb here and go on devices, and this is got to be in the reverb section here. So that's really cool. It's got large reverb, large, medium, small, and special. So Ableton 12 has just really amped up the filter section to really make your life a whole lot easier when it comes to that. So we'll add the the add button there, and that's really cool. As you see there, it adds the sidebar there. We'll add reverb, and so as you see now, you can collect that and it'll add all the reverbs that you use, and it's really cool. You can add any sort of category that you're looking for: drums, reverbs, delays, anything mixing, mastering that you have. So this is kind of like a super detailed way of finding specific things inside of your own library. And that's what's really cool about this new setting with Ableton, is that if you're a super detailed and OCD person when it comes to organizing your samples and plugins, it's just made your life a whole lot easier now with this filter category. And so you can take that now to the next level with the similar sounds feature now that Ableton has now initiated, which is super dope to kind of replace your sounds that you have or find similar suggestions to a snare that you have or a hi-hat that you might be committed to, and you want to find something that's kind of similar to it, that's got that crispiness. A really cool example here is if you just look at some snares here, this one's pretty cool. Want to find something similar to that. The first one I would recommend is that's kind of close to it. So again, this is wow, that's incredible. The ways that it can take some of your samples and just instantly read and just the quality of where it's at. I'm sure it's not a perfect program, but it's really close. And as advancements continue on with this, it's only going to get better. So shout out Ableton 12. They're just killing it. So if you guys like what you see, learn something here, make sure you hit a thumbs up. We out Los Padres, and catch you on the next one.